Come on.
I'm not nervous.
Yeah. That brings us nicely into the topic for this week. Good. Hello, everyone. Finally, we got around to saying hello to you all, and welcome in to the Countersin podcast. My name is Matt Lacey, and as ever, I am joined by the very unnervous Harry Sermon.
Good evening.
Good
Hello,
evening.
Everyone.
Hello, mate.
I'm
And
not nervous. I'm not nervous.
and the slightly tentative Jamie Joyner.
Okay. Yeah. Hi, everyone. I guess so. In comparison to comparison to Mr. Sermon.
We all are. We all are in comparison to Harry
Oh,
Sermon.
God.
As you can tell, listeners, it's been a long day. But yeah, welcome in to episode 42. If you're listening to this, thank you. It's episode 42 of our Countersin podcast. We are now adding our visuals. We are adding the video content to YouTube, our YouTube channel. So this would be the second episode on there. So easy way to remember: just take the 40 off, and you'll be exactly where we are. So welcome in, whether you're watching or listening. You have to be very careful of keeping both mediums happy now. We've had a very exciting week of bits and bobs. We caught up last week, and that episode's doing very well. Thank you very much. And we've all had kind of gigs or jobs or slightly different roles to undertake in our kind of gigging worlds, if you like, or sessions, if you like. And we were planning an episode on how, and I alluded to this earlier, we were planning an episode on how we deal with nerves and how that perhaps manifests in the run up to a gig or a session. But Harry said he doesn't get nervous, we hence my introduction.
Not really.
Not nervous.
We all sat there and paused, and I think I was the first person to go.
Yeah,
I don't really get nervous.
Yeah, so we're not going to talk about nerves as such.
No.
However, what we did realise is that with the uncertainty of taking on another responsibility within a band you're already playing for, or taking on a session, whether that's recording or a dep gig, there is some uncertainty that comes with that, and it's how we then generate or what our prep or kind of work rate is like in the run up to kind of alleviating as much uncertainty as possible, I guess, really. So yeah, that was that's what we're going to be talking about today. Thanks for everyone who's kind of we've seen our YouTube stuff come out, and thank you for watching it, and thank you for liking and subscribing. That would be wonderful if you could do that. No doubt there'll be a little bell or something, or you can press a button. That'd be brilliant. And for those listening and DMing us, we had a few people DM us after episode 41 saying that it definitely rang true and was exactly the kind of stuff that they think about as well. So thank you for getting in touch and talking about that. I think it's been a while, gents, since we've done a kind of listeners' questions one. Maybe we should. There was a few we didn't answer last time, isn't it? So maybe we'll ask people to kind of send some questions in, and we'll do a Q&A episode soon.
That'd be cool.
But yeah, let's get stuck into it, gents. Yeah. Where, in terms of, and we have kind of tongue in cheek laughed about kind of levels of nerves or anxiety or stress. I'll quite happily go first on a slight tangent. In terms of how you guys approached in the past playing a new venue. So either you're doing a dep gig or it's a band you play with or one of your bands, and you're approaching a new venue. Have you ever kind of done anything kind of random or weird? And the reason I say random and weird is because I think what I do is random and weird. I very often, when possible, have actually gone to venues before the gig to scope out, right, where can I park? Because you can only so much you can get off Google Maps. And what's the room like? How high is the ceiling? Is there a stage? What's the loading like? Have I got to come through the front door? Is there, dare I ask, some kind of green room, dressing room, or is it just the gents' toilets again? I kind of, I'm a lot more comfortable not doing that now, and that's been through the necessity of doing gigs further away. I've got a gig to do. I'm getting called for a gig in Ipswich, which is a 3.5 hour drive. I'm not going to nip past and see what the venue's like.
Different.
But so I had to kind of really get to grips with that. But yeah, have you guys ever kind of, or how have you just kind of rolled with it, or asked questions
Mhm.
of the people that have booked you, or how do you go about that?
Go for it, Jay. Lay it on us.
That's on us, Jay.
Yeah, I've definitely been burnt before by not checking it out, and whether that, I think it's normally parking, and I think that's the thing that I'm most anxious about. Kind of used to it now. I'm just kind of like, I'll figure it out. But certainly in the early days, I was just like, what if I have to park down the road? And back in those days, I had huge, like you can see them behind me, these massive blue hard cases. I had like loads of them with me, and I was like, what if it's like chucking down rain and I'm like lugging up some hardware case up the road and all that sort of stuff? And I just want to know that I can be like super close and it'll be fine. Yeah, like definitely been like, you realize, I'm on the high street, it's a Friday night, everyone's out, and I'm driving round and round in circles waiting for a moment where I can nip in, chuck my hazards on, get all my drums in the entrance, and then like jump back in my car again, go find somewhere. Like, I think we've all been in that situation where it's just like you just got to kind of roll with the punches and make it work. So yeah, few times like that. But I think like when you play like with a band on like a regular circuit or whatever, you kind of get to know venues and what the parking's like, what the area's like, and that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
it's a bit better. But if it's a more like legit venue, say legit, I mean like fancy wedding venue or something like that, normally the load in and the parking and getting changed and all those sorts of things is all pretty okay.
Yeah.
If it's a hotel or a specific venue and stuff, so it's not too bad. Other than that though, like generally I don't think about it too much. I think I will I'll probably go in. I've never been like in advance to check it out, but I will be like, okay, do I need my drum rug? Is one thing. What do I need my drum mic? And how big is the stage? Like, will I need to bring a smaller kit, or is there a sound limiter? Like, all those sorts of things are just like little factors. None of which I think will particularly impact much. I'll just turn up and go, okay, I need to do X because it's a small stage, or there's a sound limiter, so or the room is all tiles, so there's no point in miking up the kit, or whatever. So you start like figuring that sort of stuff out, but generally once you're there you kind of start making
in a
decisions.
way. So you've got a game plan for scenario A, B, and C in your head already, haven't you? Rather than turning up going, oh, how do I deal with this? You're just rolling with the fact that you don't know which scenario you're going to get, which options you're going to get when you get there.
It comes from learning the hard way as well. I think you kind of you start, you like, oh, this room's massive, and the band leader's like, oh, I haven't got a kick mic. Have you got one? And I'm like, oh no, I haven't. Oh, maybe that's something I should be invested in. Or like your bass drum slipping around on the stage, and you're like, the drum rug is going to be far, far more useful to me than I kind of thought. Like you don't really think about that, but then I was like, no, I want to make sure I'm not caught out any gig. I don't know what the stage is going to be like. Some you're on a carpet, maybe you're in a hotel or something, it's fine. Generally, I put down a rug anyway. But it's little things like you learn over time. You're like, oh, this could easily just upset things a little bit. So just gonna plan to make sure I've got some sort of option if I come up against that. But I think things like parking is much harder to anticipate. You just have to kind of get on with it. But yeah, that's me anyway. How about you, Harry?
Yeah, I think I too don't really think about it a whole lot. I want to know what the parking is like. That's important. I actually, funny enough, literally had a conversation with someone probably about 3 or 4 hours ago about a gig, and was just like, sounds great. What's the parking like? What's the, what is the venue like? It's a pub sort of thing. It's like, is it stage? Is it just, by the bar, by the toilets or whatever? So I like to ask those sorts of questions. Like, what's the load-in like? But yeah, I'm always bringing a drum rug regardless of what I'm playing. That's always in my car. I'm always laying that down because, I did one gig when I was probably just starting out in the Bristol Museum, which is like marble floor, and I didn't have a drum rug, and it was like never again. Never again am I
You're
letting that
trying to
bass
find
drum
like
get
the
away from me.
grooves in the edge of the tiles to like
Oh yeah,
wedge your
Spurs
drum
in the
your
grout.
spurs in.
yeah. Oh man, I literally was just shouting at the bass player like Rich, Rich, and he was just literally like his legs were like this, and one was on my bass drum and the other was like holding him in place. I think in the end he just sat on the bass drum in the end.
Yeah.
I think just like
Because I always thought, oh well, because I've got rubber stoppers on, I'll screw the spurs in so they're rubber stoppers. Because the rubber on, no, they don't work.
there's nothing.
do
Yeah,
anything, do they?
you want the opposite. You want the the
Yeah.
little the I shouldn't have done that.
like
Really. You want the
claws.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
I need
Exactly.
a small drill bit. That's what I need.
Yeah,
Put
exactly.
2 holes
Yeah.
in the tiles, and
There is a good little product, I think, where someone's got
what are they
like the
called?
grippy
K
feet. I can't remember what they call. You can
maybe?
basically, yeah, that's
something
it. You
called
can
K brakes,
basically
yeah.
take the bottom out and put a new bottom in that's like a rectangled foot that's like Velcro, but also like
Is it
grippy
rubber?
and
Oh,
all
yeah,
that sort of stuff.
Velcro,
Yeah.
Jay, what was the name again? I didn't catch it, mate.
I think it's called K brakes, or certainly the one I looked into
Yeah.
Ah,
a
right.
few years back. I never actually got them in the end, but I think there's some called.
That's the
K-brakes.
one with the pedal. So that goes onto your pedal and your stool. That does. It's like it's almost like a band.
Yeah, I
put it on
know
your
it, like a
pedal.
seatbelt type thing that
It's like,
wraps around.
yeah, that's
yeah,
it.
Yeah,
It goes around the thing.
okay.
But this, you can actually change like the actual.
feet on you.
Oh, I
Yeah,
used
that's
K
it,
brakes
yeah.
for that, but okay, yeah, nice.
It might be the same brand. It might be a different
Yeah,
product.
yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't know what
yeah.
they're called, but yeah, I think Jeff Randall used them. I think that's where I saw. But yeah, no. To answer your question here, essentially, I don't really. I just want to know. I look at how far it is, and I look at whereabouts it is, and yeah, I just want to know what the parking is like. Really, I'm not overly fussed about a stage. It's nicer, because you kind of get a little bit of that separation. But yeah, for me, I just want to know where I'm parking and really what the loading's like.
kinda
Oh, and
just have
sound
to-
limiter as well.
You get on with it, don't you? Like I think most musicians know.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
just sort of you rock up and you just see what you got, and you've got to like make do with that.
Yeah.
It's always nice when it's
Yeah, like
big stage, no sound limiter, and all of that sort of stuff. But sometimes
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
literally, like tiny, and you've got to really sort of think outside.
I
the box a
rarely
bit, but-
I rarely play with sound limiters, to be honest. Most people I play with don't bother with them. And most of the time, there's a few venues that we do play that have got them, but they're like you just wouldn't hit them. You'd have to be like really, really loud to hit them. But generally speaking, if there's one and it's like something silly like 70, 60 dB, it's like I'm not going to take the gig. I'd just rather not.
Yeah.
Like just something stupidly low. Where it's like this is just going to be you're the kind of venue that just shouldn't book bands. We were talking about this a minute ago, weren't we? Like
Yeah.
just don't bother. Which maybe is a bit of a way to, maybe it's not the way to do it, but I think for your personal enjoyment, if you're going to be putting time and effort in, you want to enjoy the gig.
Yeah.
You're going to play an
Yeah.
instrument.
The only
And as we've said
the
before,
only way
most of
I've
the time,
managed
if
to
the crowd
sort
really
of-
get into it.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Jay, go on.
cut of you. No, I was just going to say the only time I've seen that sort of managed fairly well and I've come out actually enjoying it was been when I've had my electric kit on a gig. And I know a lot more.
Yeah, definitely.
Certainly wedding venues and stuff are doing that now. But yeah, a couple bands I play with are like all digital. And they all just kind of go into pedals and there's no amps or anything like that. The electric kit and everything just goes out speakers and you have
Straight out
everything in
the
your
front,
ears and you can have this beautiful in-ear mix and you can be nice and loud in your ears and hear the full picture. But then out front they just turn you down and it's just it's a bit quieter. So it's not the same, and we've talked about that playing on electric kits and just the vibe for everyone else. Obviously, if it's a lot quieter, it's definitely not the same. But I think certainly from an enjoyment point of view, like actually like playing, I think that's the only other time I've actually been all right when there's been a noise limiter and been like, it's okay. I can make do,
Yeah.
And I was going to say that the irony is if you're playing to a limiter and you're playing electric kit, but if the crowd really get into it and it's one of those weddings where everyone's kicking off, their singing is probably going to be louder than that. It's them that's going to set the band is too loud. No, it's you lot shouting your heads off. That's what set the limiter.
Yeah.
It's not us because we know we are flat at 85 dB.
Yeah, not
That's
not
our peak.
going above it.
So we're 10 dB under where we. So So that's just it's a great point though, Jay. Well, both of you in terms of it's just the experience of doing it. You've just got to have and learn through those processes of
100%.
oh right, I need that. I need one of these. I need one of these. And there is, I think, just asking questions of more, if people out there perhaps don't gig very much or just getting out gigging, don't be scared to ask questions of more experienced players, and or don't be thinking you've got to play it cool and not ask anything because people will think less of you.
Yeah.
You want to do a good job if you're depping, or your band, if the singer's booked a venue, ask the questions that we've just been talking about, because it's being forearmed is forewarned, isn't it, about that stuff, and it can help you have a plan A and a plan B and a plan C. So that's that kind of,
and you
the
feel
whole
more
process
at peace
of
with
getting,
it as well, like going in knowing what you're going to get. You feel like a little bit more calm about it. If you know I've got a parking spot, or there's no noise limiter, or it's a tiled floor and I've got my rug
getting
with
fed
me,
tonight,
or anything like that. Like exactly. It just kind of gives you that sense of security, and you can then focus on your playing and all the other things you got to do.
And you probably want to be asking all those questions before you ask what the fee is.
Yeah, maybe.
Unless you ask the fee, you go, doesn't matter, I'm not doing it.
Yeah. Oh, well, never mind. I think I'm actually busy that day. Sorry. Sorry, I forgot about that.
But so we're talking about the venues and talking about the venues and getting there and finding the place and stuff. When it comes to having, as I said, different roles or doing a dep gig, so I've done a gig. We've all gigged since the drum show now, haven't we? We've all had stuff on, I think. So I've been prepping for a dep gig, which went really well, but it was a new venue to me, hence my question. A really small stage, and I walked past it because it's on a pedestrian precinct, and it's like the drummer's sitting on the stage back to the window, and there's already a drum kit there. I'm like, well, that looks like it's going to last 2 songs. So I'm like, and the band I'm depping for, it's great, there's a kit there already, you just got a few bend of... my pet peeve is, just bring your breakables. Well, I'm going to clarify, none of it's breakable.
Yeah.
It's not used once.
Yeah. That also used to really grind my gears as well. You do the gigs in town and stuff. Just bring your breakables. Okay, well, what do you class as breakables? Are we talking cymbals and snare? Or are we talking cymbal, snare, stool, cymbal, snare, kick pedal?
Yeah.
Oh, no, you want the whole hardware. Okay, brilliant. Well, I didn't bring it, and I've got 10 minutes to set it all up, so thanks,
Basically, there is a bass drum and 2 toms at the venue, and you have to bring everything else. You're like, well, I might as well just bring my kit at that point,
Yeah.
Well, I was desperate to use my kit for this. As I looked through the window, one of them had a Gear for Music head on it. And I'm
hey, hang on a minute. They're not that bad. They're not that bad.
So
they're not that bad.
And I was desperate to play my new heads because I wanted to get embedded in and I want to see what they sound like. So got to the venue on the night of the gig, and I realised the guy stood outside. I know him, and blow me, he used to work at another venue that I gigged at loads. I'm on first name terms with him, and he's now working at this new place. Says, "Hi, mate. Oh, yeah, I'm going to see. I'm playing it tonight. Can I clear all this off the stage? Yeah, mate. Help yourself. Right, done. So that was great. Yeah, go. Oh, I'll get it all out your way in a minute.
Just
great.
Move that.
But in terms of, so I was prepping for that gig, and we'll talk about how I kind of went about that in a bit. Harry, I know you had a studio session where you were kind of perhaps working with new people and just reacquainting yourselves with what was likely to come up on that session. And, And Jay, you've been involved with one of your bands where you've kind of taken a different role in terms of running. You talked about electronics and electrics, and you've been running the sound. Is that right? And basically MDing the show, if I guess we could call it that. So we've all had to kind of approach this new stuff differently. Yeah. We've approached it all kind of. We've had to approach a new skill set or a new kind of reacquaint ourselves with new jobs in the role of drumming. So Harry, do you want to give us a bit of detail on the session you were doing and what it was about, and again, what your process was for prep, or what you wanted to be kind of really happy with in terms of going into the day?
Yeah, I mean, so it was people that I've played with before. There's a band that I joined at the beginning of the year, but we'd never recorded together. Basically, they had put together an album that they'd all worked on with the sort of singer. Is it sort of like his project, but it's like a band sort of thing. And they had sort of finished that pre-COVID, released it mid-COVID, went for a slew of drummers, kind of it sort of, fizzled out a little bit, and they weren't really happy with sort of who was in the band and so on. or like drummer wise. And then I met the singer last year, and he really liked my playing. So yeah, he basically got me in for rehearsal and was like, "Do you want to join the band?" I was like, "Yeah, this is really great." The other guys loved it. Blah blah blah. We've been gigging a couple of times throughout this year. And then sort of over the summer, we did a couple of like headline shows, like 245s sort of type situations. So we need to write more songs. So we kind of started working on some new songs. So this was our first time basically starting now a new batch of songs to record. I think this is just going to be a single. But we wanted to do a pre-production session. One of the guys in the band has a room that he rents at Firebird Studios. Which we've all been to, I think. Right? Yeah, that's what we did. I think. Yeah. So we basically got together, and the idea was to sort of just run through the song, run through the arrangement. We've only really played this song in a live setting and in a rehearsal room, so it was a case of okay, well, how long is it? What can we trim? What parts are we liking? What's working? What isn't? Really, just to kind of play it and be able to all listen back and go, right, this works, this doesn't work, and so on. So essentially, all prep wise, a couple of things. I was thinking about sound, even though it was going to be pre-prod, so it wasn't really like make or break. I got a new head for the snare that I wanted to use that I thought would be a good idea. Literally tuned it all up. That's that video that I put out the other day. A little sort of time lapse thing.
What snare was that again, mate?
It was a 12x7 maple shell. I think it's actually a pearl. I think it's like a 90s pearl soprano. Someone's like redone the lugs and refinished it and stuff. It sounds amazing. It sounds great. And I was like, yeah, this would be great. I got a new head on it. I thought this was going to be brilliant. And I literally tuned it up here. I was like, this is great, wonderful. Got in the room, set up all the kit, and I was like, right, get the snare out. Literally tapped it 3 times, went, nope, that's not the one, and just chucked it to the side. And then that's how I ended up playing the Copperphonic that was on there. That my friend's kit that I was using, who shares the room with him. He had that, and the whole point was really, it's like a 6/8 sort of ballady type song. The obvious thing is to do the fat gushy snare drum sound, and we were just kind of like, what if it wasn't? What if it was something different? Could it work? Blah blah blah. Yeah. And we were just like, nah, that's not the one. So that I was prepping with sound and stuff and drums and just kind of seeing what I was going to use cymbal wise. I'm not 100% sold on what I used yet, but listening back, I think it sounds good. But also, and what we were discussing beforehand, it was being a 6/8 sort of ballady song. I hadn't recorded with those guys before, so I wanted to make sure that I'd do a good job. And B, I hadn't really played those kind of grooves at that sort of tempo and that sort of feel to a click in a really long time. Probably like a good sort of 8 months, maybe a year, because there's a Digsby song that's very, very similar that I recorded earlier in the year. So I was like, right, well, I've got an hour or two before I go. I want to sit down with a click, set up my practice kit and just sort of played away. I found roughly what the tempo was, because you guys know what it's like when you get in a session and they go, right, we're ready, what's the tempo? And you all go, I don't know. I've got no idea. So I wanted to at least come in with a bit of a ballpark. I knew that the click thing was going to be, a potential curveball. Do we do it in quarter notes and we just feel the swing? Do we do it in 6/8 and kind of adjust as we go? For me, it was, I wanted to come in with a couple of options and be like, well, I think we could kind of do this. Even though that being said, that, the guys that, I'm in the band with, we're all very much, we also got that producer head and we can all sort of,
that's good. Yeah.
Just kind of, we all kind of know roughly what we're doing around that way. That was, for me, that was a nice bit of preparation. It's something that I hadn't really had to do for, it wasn't like time is money. We literally all got there. We all set up and immediately went and got lunch for like another hour and I didn't think we were hit record until like 2.5 hours later until we got there.
That's great.
And we like stayed till 6 and like, it was really, really chill. So we weren't worried about time or money or anything or, there was no end goal. It was simply literally, can we just record the song, make some changes. And now actually, I think this weekend we're going to go and track and start it properly. So I think we're locking in the bass and drums, hopefully in the next week or so, which would be great. And I think that I'd never done a pre-production session before as well. So for me, I was kind of a little bit like, it was a little bit of the unknown. I didn't want to maybe put too many of my ideas out there or step on anyone's toes, or maybe hear something and go, I really don't like that, but I don't think I'm, in a position to say, and all those sorts of things. But yeah, I feel like I've rambled on a little bit, but yeah, it was really good. But it was definitely a nice sort of learning curve. And to kind of talk about the nerves sort of thing, I did feel a little bit on edge, because you want to do a good job. I didn't want them to go, oh, we really like this drummer. I think he's really good. He really suits the band. And you go into the studio and you hit record and they go, oh gosh, this is not working.
I think though, Harry, and firstly, thank you for rambling on. You didn't ramble on. For those people watching,
I saw your thing, man.
Yeah, it's. I realised my Mac wasn't powered up, so I'm like, oh, I'm going to die in a minute if I don't go and get my plug. So apologies for that. For listeners, that I was muted and disappeared for 3 minutes. But on that point, Harry, about I don't think you're not nervous about your playing and your ability. That's more about bedding in with new people, and as you said. Well, I don't want to start going, well, that sounds rubbish, and I think you should do that, because everyone's just feeling their way. And I've done that with my originals band. You kind of, someone's coming in with a written song, and you're like, it took me a while to go, what about changing that? And can we do this? And this is what I've got my idea for the ending. But I think that's more of a kind of feeling your way with new personalities rather than but that's
how do you tell people that you're not that keen on their idea without going, I think it's rubbish, and then you're and offending people, but obviously you're not saying this is rubbish, but there's definitely a way to talk and express how you feel and your opinions without just being either point blank, unless they're like your best mates or whatever, and you kind of just you're like that with each other. But I what was really nice is I think we literally did 3 takes once we'd narrowed down the arrangement, and there were some parts we were like, oh, that's pretty good, blah blah blah. And one of the guys was like, we finished and we were like, we all look around and nodding, and one of the guys was like, I couldn't even remember the click being on, I didn't even hear it, I forgot about it. So I was like, cool. Okay, well, in my head I was like, well, that hour that I spent just sitting to a click was clearly worth it, So
great.
That was my kind of experience over the last week. So, but I mean, I look forward to sharing the track hopefully when it comes out at some point, and I'll maybe get a little video as well in the studio of me playing. But
when you said about the pre-production thing, you sent a message, I was a bit like, oh, I didn't really know what that was or what it is. Is it just basically to kind of assess the sort of vibe and sound that you're going to go for? Is that kind of the purpose of it?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, imagine you've got a studio session booked. You want to do a little bit. You could get together and rehearse the songs. That would be beneficial. You could also have a little session where you guys maybe actually go, right, let's really assess. What are the sounds am I going to use? Well, I'm going to use the Strat on this song, and I'm going to use the Telly and this, and I'm going to use the Stratos and the chord, or I'm going to use this snare on this drum and go for this sound, and just a little bit of sort of preparation sort of stuff. I think you definitely want to leave maybe some of that to the studio, because, hopefully you get inspired to try some different things and leave it up to the room. And some things might sound good in the room, some things might not. But just essentially making sure that when you get to the studio and get to studio time, get to recording, making sure that, you're basically ready to lay down the final version of the song and not go, I mean, in Hush Mosey as well, we're terrible at doing this. We'll listen back to it. We'll get 3 mixes in and we'll go, the intro's too long, cut the intro. So now we have to do some dodgy cut on Logic, and it's back and forth and all you fix the whole fix it in the mix thing.
Should have been done earlier, or could have been done earlier, sort of thing.
Exactly, yeah. And just trying to eliminate as many of those, fix it later on, or actually we should have done the third take of that guitar because actually that melody clashes with that harmony that we now wanted to put in. Just little things like that. I mean, we didn't do a lot. We literally just recorded. I'll send it to you guys later actually because I got the bounce. It was literally a kick out, 2 stereo overheads, all DI'd guitars, a vocal with an SM57 that was sat over that way that made the drums sound insane as well. It was like a room mic. Put an acoustic over the top of it, put some harmonies. That was it, and that was enough for us to kind of go right. Okay, we put, I think, like a little organ in there as well, just to get a bit of vibe going. But then we're all going, oh, maybe we could, this bit we need to next time when we go to record it, we need to go a bit harder in the verse, or we needed to go into the chorus a little bit more. We need that dynamic, or we need a piano. Oh, maybe actually we need a Rhodes. All those sorts of things. Our strings could be good here. Like now that you can listen back to it, you can kind of think and actually scope out the song a little bit more instead of kind of like being in the studio and being like, we've got an hour and a half left. What can we throw on this thing and hope that it sounds good? Anyway,
I guess it's also
ramble.
No, it's that.
That's good.
The danger is for me for that. Sorry, to talk about that. It's a good point though, Harry. Is I've done pre-production but rehearsals, so we know the form.
Yeah.
Not done quite to that level of detail. I guess my concern with that would be that if you get into creative flow, in the pre-recording production type kind of session, it's how you kind of bottle that and revisit it when you come to do the thing, and whether that if that's what's happening in the moment, then a lot of me's thinking, well, this feels right now.
Just get it, yeah.
Are we going to be able to kind of replicate that when it comes to the actual recording? So that's an interesting. I guess I don't think that's a con from my perspective, but
I know what you mean. I was ready to go and do it. I would have been happy to stay there for another couple of hours and
just at
least even just get some of those ideas in. But the thing is, now we have some bounces to listen back to. I think we can write notes and kind of. Great. I think also Will was kind of like, I want to work on the melody a bit more and maybe map out some harmonies. And I think Jack was like, oh, I could get some strings in there. Let me maybe think of a strings arrangement. So you've kind of got that time to. Basically keep preparing for it. But
cool.
Yeah, it was really great. It was really worthwhile. I think if we tried to do that for like an album's worth, it's going to really take a lot of time. But I don't know. Maybe the songs will really, really benefit from it. It also depends on the band as well. If you're a jazz band, you probably just need to just get the form and get a few takes, and you're happy to go, isn't it? But
pick which one you prefer.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it.
Yeah. So it does definitely depend on your music that you're playing.
No, too right, man.
But what about you guys? We've all been doing some different stuff.
Yeah, Jay, how was your kind of the approach to the kind of MD role in terms of getting to grips with?
I mean, I don't think it
more
was
plugs
quite,
and knobs.
quite the MD role. I definitely had a lot of. It was a collaborative effort, I think, on the night eventually. I think I felt the pressure because this particular gig was, it was quite. There was a lot of pressure on it because of a few things, but mostly the band leader who normally does all the sound was not there, and so we had a dep, and he normally brings all the PA, does the iPad. It's all digital desk and stuff like that, so fortunately it was quite straightforward. But there was a lot of like, okay, we need to do sound check now. I need to like go out front and like mix this, maybe tweak the EQ and stuff like that. And then I'm like, oh, can you hit my snare, or can you like play a basic? I'm the drummer, and I'm like, normally I'm the one behind the kit, and you're mixed in, but now I'm trying to do it. And so in the end, like I had to sort of be like, okay, like I'm gonna need a second opinion and stuff like that. But yeah, it was basically like logistically a lot, but also like just to get my head around it. I don't know if you guys relate, but certainly as a dep drummer. You don't often have to do too much. You just you sort of like you set your drums up, and for me it's like I walk over to the band leader and I go, here's my pack, here's my kick mic, and here's my EAD maybe. Where do I plug them in? And I'll plug them in, and then I'm like, what app do I use for the desk? And then he's like, here's the Wi-Fi, here's your mix, and I'm just like good to go. And I tweak it, and I'm like, right, cool. And so for most gigs, that's kind of the extent at which I needed to know about that stuff. And I'm just, I didn't know about just like the directions of inputs and outputs and who had what and all the buttons on the PA, like just stuff I've just never had to worry about, even in recording sessions and things. not really had to do too much about it. So yeah, for that particular gig, I was like, I need to learn this stuff, and I made our band leader like send me like a flow chart diagram of like the sound. You plug it in here, and this person's pack, and it goes in here. Number one's this, number two's this, number three's this, and like a checklist, and it goes out to the subs, and then the subs go to the tops, and all these other things. So it was a lot I had to kind of learn. And then to add to that, it was in the middle of the Mural tour. So my originals band were playing in Glasgow the night before, and I was set to do this sound in Cardiff on the Saturday. And so I had to fly back on the Saturday morning in the middle of the tour to get to the gig, which was all fine. It went really well, thank goodness. But it was quite high pressure, and if something had gone wrong or the flight was cancelled or even delayed, it would have gone seriously wrong. And it was potentially one of the busiest nights of the year as well. So there was no like, I couldn't get like an emergency dep or anything like that. It was just like it was a lot of risk involved, but it went really well. But it made me think like, this is a skill which I hadn't really considered before, and something that I think I now need to start like really getting my head around a bit. A lot of stuff, certainly when it comes to tech in the past, has kind of gone in one ear and out the other, and I've not really understood it. And I don't know if there are other listeners out there that relate to that, but as certainly as like an acoustic instrument, you don't need an amp, you don't need wires and all that sort of stuff. So when you learn, it's like you're just hitting lumps of metal and bits of plastic. Like, it's there's not necessarily a lot of tech involved when you learn and when you play growing up. Whereas I guess with guitarists and so on, it's like, oh yeah, all different guitar effects and pedals and sounds and leads and amps and tones, and there's a whole rabbit hole to go down. And I think that world is just a little bit more familiar maybe, and it's potentially just a little bit more natural to you. So for me at least, it's been a bit of a learning curve to kind of get my head around that, and that's then fed on to another gig I was on recently, where it was an analog desk, and there was only 3 of us. We'd never played together, and they were like, "We're on wedges," and I was like, "Okay," and then they were like, "We'll maybe do track, we might not, but have it just in case." And then I was like, "Okay, so I want to be able to like hear them, and I want to be able to hear myself. I want to be able to hear the click and track. I want to have control over that, but there's no app." And I was just like, this is going to be a nightmare. So I was just like chatting to the guy on the gig who was like band leader, just to try and get my head around some of it. And he very, very kindly like rang me up and sort of walked me through the entire thing. And then after the gig, I was like, "Look, I want to get my head around this. Like, is there any way I can like get a little bit better? Like, what would you suggest?" And he was like, "I think that it might be worth investing in like a little mini mixer desk, and to just have complete control over your ears, no matter what. And so you can rock up to every gig knowing that you're going to have a great mix." And he was like, "That's completely within your grasp if you want. If it's a digital desk, great. Yeah. But if it's analog, you can just go to the gig knowing that you're going to have a lovely in-ear mix." And I was like, that would be great. And kind of going back to what we were talking about at the start of the episode of that unknown and stuff like that, if I know that whatever the desk is, whatever the band I'm playing with, that I've got the bits of gear that I need to be able to kind of make it better for me, then it's just a lot more of an easier gig and a lot more enjoyable. So yeah, I've sort of jumped into that world a little bit, invested in a little dual DI box. So yeah, basically if I'm shooting out the track from like an iPad or something, it'll go left and right into the DI box, and then I take a feed from there into my little mixer, and I've got control over click and track if I want. And then I send that on to to the desk, and then if I want, I can then bring a line from the desk into my mixer as well, which will just give me like an overall like mix of like vocals or guitars or whatever is in there. But at least I know if I can hear track and click and my EAD, that I'm like halfway there. It's just given me a lot more confidence and security around it. But I had to spend a lot of time just like trying to figure out like what it all does and what it would be for. And yeah, it's already it's paying off. Like just at the weekend, I was sorry, I'm going on loads here of these different gigs, but I'm realizing how that my sort of development with this has come. But I was doing a video shoot at the weekend, and we were doing like miming along to 5 different tracks, and we're basically blasting out the speakers. Everyone else was just like ampless, or kind of there were amps there, but they weren't really using them, you know, and we weren't like mic'd up. And I was like, I don't really want to like we're playing like pop punk songs like Blink and stuff. Like I don't really want to like just jam along to this. It's just going to sound, and we're in a barn. Like I'm not going to hear it. I'm not going to be tight. And I want to be able to hear the track in my ear. Like I want to hear my drums that I've recorded in my ear as we play. And so I bought my DI box with me, and I pinched the audio from that, and I had control of everything in my ear. I could turn it up really loud, and they can just set the speakers as loud as they want. They can play along. I don't have to think about that. I just got it all in my ear, and it made the whole thing way better. And I thought, like, well, if I hadn't invested in the DI box and learnt about that stuff, I would have been playing along to some tracks in a barn and hoping I'd be staying in time to, you know, a Blink song, which is it changes in tempo anyway throughout the song, while trying to remember the fills that I recorded for the track 2 months ago and that sort of stuff. It was just like another thing off my plate that I was like, oh, this is really nice to have sort of seen the payoff from like learning that stuff. Nice. So yeah, that's my long story of like all this. But
it's
great. It's all good stuff.
It's really interesting, isn't it, about kind of needing the pressure of a thing to learn a thing.
Yeah, and forcing your hand, really, isn't it?
Forcing your hand to, and you're going to try and lean into that, haven't you? I was just wondering if, like, people out there, you know, listening or watching, if there's something that, you know, they wish they could do better or knew they had an insight into. I think, you know, it might be a challenge for all of us, us three at least. And if anyone out there's, you know, got anything they wish they were kind of more proficient at in the wider realm of kind of gigging, whether that's playing guitar or drums or whatever, you know, drop us a comment or kind of tell us it's all about. But maybe we should be looking at or challenging each other or trying to find something to get stuck into rather than being, because I'm a procrastinator when it comes to that. It's like, oh, I've got a thing I've got to do, right? And now I'm gonna prioritize the thing I need to learn for the thing. Yeah. Maybe we kind of need to put, you know, get a bit more ahead of the game with a few bits like that, because the tech stuff is certainly. I've been very lucky to have a singer that's kind of, he owns all that and does it all. And you know, I'm putting drums together and he's setting up a Wi-Fi router. I'm like, why the hell is he doing that?
Yeah.
So it's kind of, it'd be great to know more about that. But yeah, maybe we could be on the front foot with that stuff. That would be a good little challenge for everyone listening, or us three.
It's transposable as well into like your playing as well, isn't it? Like, you know, if you say, oh, I really wish I was playing in like a jazz band or whatever, well, try and book yourself as a jazz dep for something like that. Put yourself out there. Try, you know, if you've got a jazz gig, you're gonna definitely practice some jazz. You know, or whatever the thing is. You know,
that's what I did last summer.
And try and. Yeah,
well, like, drum lessons. When I got drum lessons,
I met a guy recently. Actually, like, funny that you say that, Jay. Actually, 'cause I met a guy recently at a gig, and I don't think it was jazz. I think it was more like funk stuff. And I think he was basically saying that he was like, I want to be in a band. I want to play stuff like that. Like, how do I do it? I was like, book yourself a gig. Like, you know, try and, I don't know. Yeah. Try and get a gig. Try and, if you see someone that is depping for, I think it's like a funk thing. Like, say if someone wants a funk drummer, put yourself out there, practice, you know, and book yourself some lessons and just, get yourself stuck in. And if it don't go well, then you know what you need to do. You know, just try your best to get out there. You know,
got to throw yourself in the deep end sometimes. And even though it's very 100%, uncomfortable, 100%. Like, I guess, like, even if you crash and burn, obviously you hope that won't happen. But like you learn from mistakes,
Yeah,
and making mistakes, like the benefit is you won't make the mistake again because you'll learn from that process. So putting yourself out of your comfort zone in some way and kind of risking it, you're going to come out a better player eventually, in the process.
100%.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's all
So
good
Matt,
stuff.
tell us about your gig then. This this step gig, new venue, new people, some familiar faces.
Yeah,
new kit set up as well.
Yeah,
What's
so
going on?
it was a whole kind of new stuff. But yeah, you talk about that kind of getting out there and doing stuff and challenging yourself. The thing I had to approach for this gig, because it was like a punk and new wave band. So two of the members of the band, I depped for them before when they were doing a function thing. That kind of went by the wayside, and they wanted to do something more straightforward, straight ahead, pub gigs, not having to go and do wedding fairs and all that stuff. They just want. So I knew them, and the thing that kind of was a bit weird about this, and I think I've touched on this before, so I'm not going to kind of fully, hopefully not repeat myself completely, but I was offered 4 gigs with them because they couldn't find their drummer had emigrated to New Zealand, and while they were looking for a drummer, they wanted to have something in place for these gigs they had coming up. Long story short, I only actually ended up needing to do the 3rd gig of the 4 because they had a drummer in who was ready to go. They rehearsed with him. So there was no point me coming to the rehearsal we got booked. You might as well rehearse with him and gig with him. And so weirdly, I kind of started to prep for this, expecting the first gig to be kind of like August. I think it was one in August, one in September, one in October, and then there was due to be one in November. And it was that thing where I knew most of the songs, but because I had played with a couple of them before, in a way, I'd kind of I was not concerned, but again, it's that expectation about their assumptions around what I'm going to bring to the gig. I didn't want to kind of, Matt did a great job last time, but this time I didn't want to lure myself into a false sense of security. So I kind of,
that's great. Yeah.
So looked at the set list. I know that. And there was some real kind of, the thing for me that was the thing that I needed to prep. So I'm going to chart the songs because there might be straightforward punk songs from the late 70s, 80s. So there was some Buzzcocks in there. There was some jam tracks. There was a bit of Police. We actually opened the set with Basket Case, kind of Green Day, so a more modern post-pop pop punk thing. But the tempos are all absolutely flat out. Like the first 10, Basket Case is 178. Then we did Ever Fall in Love with Someone You Shouldn't Have Fallen in Love With by the Buzzcocks. So that was like 180. And the first 6 songs are all 175, 178, 180, 182. Flat out punk song with kind of all with slightly different bass drum patterns. So I thought, well, actually, in terms of the prep, chart the song out, and you think, they're straight up 3-minute songs. But some of the jam tracks have got, there's like a 9-bar, there's like an 8-bar middle 8, and then there's a 1-bar bridge into the chorus. So it's like you're counting 9. Yeah, the structure's not what you expect. So I actually thought, right, what I want to know that I could turn up with a bit of warm up on a pad, I need to be able to play at 180 for 20 minutes, give or take, 5, 6
Straight
songs.
Straight
out the gate. So I did a lot of endurance work really on a pad with a click, just like ba 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 ba.
Yeah.
Mainly, being honest, my right hand for hi-hat.
There
was no benefit for switching to left for that because I'm not going to be doing that on the gig. But soon some 16ths. So that was some work I put in, just like I'm going to turn up and I'm not going to cramp up come the 3rd chorus.
Yeah. And plus 5 BPM for adrenaline and energy.
Yeah,
and
exactly. Yeah,
and
one thing I had, and I made a note of who started what songs, and I thought, well, I'm counting this one, and that's a guitar start. But what I didn't realise when I come to rehearsal was like, okay, can you count us in? I'm like, what's your start? Yeah, but I need a tempo. Oh, okay. So now I've got to be dialed in. Now I'm counting you in, managing the adrenaline, not adding 5 BPM. And one of the songs, I'm going to be honest, is, most people are going to shout at whatever they're listening to or watching this going, of course, you didn't know that. But Chaise Long by Wet Leg, didn't know that. And
It's quite a new song, to be fair.
yeah,
Quite a new
newish
song.
maybe, yeah.
New in the world of covers, for sure.
Yeah.
I was
So
gonna
it was
say,
new to me. A lot
I've
of fun.
definitely not played it as a cover, but yeah, I guess it makes sense on
No.
on
Yeah.
your gig. But,
But that's like, oh, it's dun dun get dun 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 get dun 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 get dun 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 get. But that bass drum part is 4 minutes,
Yeah,
and it's
No breaks on that
160
one.
160 BPM. So, and there's that bit in the middle where it's like da 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 da. So right, I get a rest in the middle. But I came to play it, got through the first verse, great. Into the chorus, into that like a 10-bar chorus. There's 8 bars, and there's a 2-bar bridge back into the verse. And by the end of the second verse, legs like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah. End of.
So again, that was right, practicing that, but not practicing it fresh, playing 3 songs, then playing it. And then, right, can I maintain do do get do? Because ironically, going do 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 is easier than going do 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 because you're having to reset your foot. So then I had to come up with some strategies about, right, well, I can play 3 heel up, 3 heel down, 3 heel up, just to kind of eke out a bit more endurance from the leg, the wet leg.
The wet leg,
The wet leg, because I was sweating quite a bit. Yeah, so that was a kind of thing. I needed to be, right, I want to come to rehearsal. And what I ended up, actually on the gig, and I've recorded the gig, so I'll be kicking some footage out, but the gig version was the best I played it. But what I decided to do is when the band cut in for the choruses, when it all goes up and there's a lot of bass guitar, I modified the bass pattern just to give me one extra 8th note rest. So I was going do do get do 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 get do do do. So I was dropping one out just to give me that little bit of. And then when I got to the,
do you think anyone would have
on the
noticed that,
chaise
or
longue.
do you reckon that?
No, exactly.
That was,
no. So when I got to the dum 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 do do dum, I'm playing that solid quarter note. I thought, right, now it's just I've got 32 bars now just to get to the end. So
take a breath.
Take a breath, yeah. So take a breath and shake the foot off and crack on. So again, that was the specific prep I did around the pace of the gig and specifically that song in terms of getting up to grips with it. Because my bass drum foot's pretty quick. I can play triplets, I can play 16ths, I can play a group of 4/16ths. But actually playing those 8th notes consistently is an endurance thing. So
and the energy as well, isn't
it?
Your power,
Exactly, yeah. And that last note being as strong as the first in that group of 3 and all of that dynamic. So, and how you approach it. So I was trying to make sure I rested my foot on the 3rd beat, heel down, then coming back up rather than play 3 heel up. I was going heel, toe, heel, as it were. So yeah, that was the prep I did for that. And then we did, and so I was really just listening everywhere I went, listening to the songs, listening to the tracks, playing the set in order from cold. So right I'm happy that I'm not going to cramp up and I'm still going to play the fills. And it was just, then there was a lot of active listening while I'm driving around. And I charted, I'd say a third of the set that were kind of new. And then I asked them for the running order for the gig. So then I had a Spotify playlist in order. So I knew what song was next automatically, just all of those little things you iron out. A couple of them had fade out. So I was asking them at the rehearsal about, when we just had one rehearsal, 4 or 5 days before the gig, they dropped a couple of songs because they weren't so familiar with them because they've got rotating songs in the set. Came to the gig and it's a local gig for me, 10 minutes from home, like you were talking about in the last episode, Harry. Dream gig.
Oh yeah,
10
dream
minutes
gig.
It took me longer to load in than it did to drive home. It was great. But because of that, and because it wasn't a private function, I was able to ask a load of mates to come. And a lot of my mates are like, who are not musician friends, are like, never seen me play. So I was like, right. And my daughter came to watch me for the first time ever because she's of an age where she can go to pubs now. And because she's like, she's either, she's been too young to come and see me play in pubs. So, she's never seen me or been that impressed with me when she was growing up. She's like, whatever.
And now you're like a rock star.
It was like,
yeah.
She said she got all her cool points from me now, so that was a nice thing. That's good. Yeah.
Nice.
So that was cool. There was that impression of like people coming to see me play, expectation, and I did the rehearsal and it went really well. We did a rehearsal at a kind of small studio in Loughborough, and they said to me, I said, they were playing a slightly different version of Wet Leg with a much longer introduction. I says, "You're not doing the long introduction," because it's like, and they said, "Well, to be fair, of all the drummers we've had, you're the only one who's ever attempted to play the full thing as with the full kick pattern." So I felt the work was justified, and
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, and then the gig went really well. Again, it was like there was a backline drum kit which I didn't want to use because I wanted to use mine. I got a new configuration of the kit, so I just used.
And you would have been playing this on your new pedal as well, wouldn't you?
Yeah, new DW5000.
Yes.
Yeah, which was solid.
Breaking
and
it
again, I think I mentioned it in the previous episode. That habit of going down, checking it's still tight.
Yeah, all good.
I did it a couple of times in the gig. I went, I just need. No, it's fine.
Yeah,
It's like unbelievable having that box checked in your head. I don't need to worry about that. That was great. So, so yeah, new pedal, new heads, new setup,
Fresh,
new venue. Yeah, friends and family watching. The gig, people that so it was, it is what it
Lots
is.
going on.
Turn up and just play the gig and make sure you perform it, and it was great, and it went really well, and they were really great because they knew it was only my second run through, so everyone was keeping an eye on each other. I got some lovely comments from the crowd and people afterwards, and they really loved it. But yeah, it was a really hot gig, and I was really happy how I got the kit tuned up. So yeah, it was all successful, but it was just kind of doing the prep. And then ironically I did a lot of prep prior to the August gig, which never happened, and then I had to put it on the back burner, so it was just revisiting it and just applying myself to the count, ran it through with the charts, and then ran it through blind, and then
it's always good when you immediately feel that like weight or that sigh of relief after a gig of like, I did the work and it went well.
Yeah.
Like, we've all probably been there of doing a gig where you go, should have prepared a little bit more for that. Or I undercooked that one a little bit. Regardless if the gig went well, you're like, definitely, I sold myself short there a little bit. Some people kind of like don't really care. Some people are like, what is it? Or like, they're like, oh, it was our fault, we messed up, whatever. But yeah, that's a great feeling of when, especially a gig that's been on your mind a lot. Do you know what I mean? Like a gig where you're like, oh, I'm still listening to the set. I've been listening to it all week. You get to Thursday and you're like, oh, I don't want to listen to these songs anymore. I'm just, but you always go for that extra round, and it's worthwhile.
Until you're fed up of them, plus one more listen.
Exactly, then go again. And then the bits that you can never remember will be stuck in your head constantly. You'll go home and go to bed and just won't stop singing that. That you couldn't remember, and then stuck there then.
It is, it's solid, isn't it? And I guess that's a bit more specific. You're not going to learn every song in case it comes up in a set. You are going to be specifically learning songs in the set. But yeah, it went really well.
I've got a bandioki gig in a couple of weeks, and the set list has 250 songs.
Yeah, just chart them all out, Harry.
I literally just said, I'm not learning all of those. I was like, I'll show you the ones I know, and we'll do that.
Yeah.
It's actually the same guys I recorded with the other day. But,
cool. That's cool.
But yeah, that should be fun. But yeah, no chance for me. No chance.
Yeah, I mean, lots of different prep and lots of different stuff. Mine, I guess, was a kind of a far more kind of usual scenario of learning songs for a dep gig, really. But I guess because of the kind of the specifics of, I don't know, the songs, the speeds, the endurance, there was some kind of slightly different approach to it. And Jay, your kind of electronic wizardry and getting to grips with everything you're doing. With
I think with all of these, it's all just stuff like the more you gig, the more that experience you build up. I think you start to realize like where not like your weak spots are, but you know where there's space to learn. And I think there's always going to be that. I think like for me the sound thing was quite a big one. But I think the harder bit is when it's a unexpected surprise and you're like, oh, I've got to do this pretty quickly, otherwise it could all go very pear-shaped. And I think they're the difficult ones, but they're always, I think they're always going to happen, and that's kind of like part of the journey.
100%.
It might just be be another depth gig, and you're like, oh, but it's not just another depth gig because there's all these additional elements, or oh, it's just another studio session. It's like, well, actually, this one's a bit different, and how I thought it was going to go, it's really not. So what am I going to do? So I think it's always going to be that, and it's just how you respond to it, isn't it?
I think, or you just don't. For everyone out there, don't worry about, oh, I might be overthinking it. You're never overthinking it.
Yeah.
The worst thing you can do is underthink it. And me and my fellow overthinkers out there, this is where our skill set comes into its own, just to kind of make sure you've got all those things covered. But everyone out there, get into. Go on, H. Go on.
No, sorry, I was just going to say, I think also as well to kind of clarify the point where we said at the beginning, we don't get nervous. I think the point is
we didn't say that. We said you don't get nervous.
Yeah, okay. So
you said
when
that.
I said I don't get nervous, really, I think what we're talking about, I think we're all probably, I think we can safely say with confidence that I don't think any gigs that we've done we've been nervous to play the drums, right? No. We don't get nervous to play the drums now. What we do get a bit nervous about in those situations is the unknown, is the uncertainty. Yes, it's the same batch of songs, but I haven't played them with these people, and I don't know the venue, I don't know the setup, and I can record drums, but what if they suggest an idea that I can't play? And there's just all these other options. That's where the nerves and the uncertainty comes from. But like you said, you have to put yourself in those situations. You have to, try. If you're doing the same things over and over again, that is where you aren't being challenged, and that's where the progression, I think, happens. So I don't think I'm hoping everyone can also relate to the fact that hopefully they don't feel nervous when they play the drums. Yeah, it's the challenges, the uncertainty that's where the nerves and the really the challenge comes in. You probably do get nervous for a challenge, but I think that's a good thing.
You're going to harness
about it.
You're going to harness the nerves to take the action.
Yeah, exactly. And if you don't get nervous, you're probably not really that invested.
No. I mean, if people have got anything out there that they think, rather than wait for that to become a thing, is what can I do proactively to take away some uncertainty in an area of the gig, the playing, the tech, whatever, playing with a click, learning songs at a higher tempo, getting to grips with the PA, whatever it might be. Drop us a comment with, what the kind of stuff is there. I probably wish I was better at that. Yeah. I'm going to take some action. And challenge yourself to be a bit uncomfortable with going into it, open-minded, but know that you're going to come out of it with another skill set, another bit of knowledge, some awareness. It's all good stuff. Guys, I think we'll wrap up there.
Great stuff.
Thanks for sharing all those bits and bobs. I'm sure as we wrap up, Harry will expertly put some relevant links in the show notes. I think that's the
down there.
Down below. We can point now, don't we? Wherever you're watching. YouTube down there. Certainly. So if you found this useful, by all means, you can buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Count Us In podcast. That would be great. We'd really appreciate it because we are now putting a little bit of effort into putting it out on YouTube as well. And if you are watching on YouTube, thanks very much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and it helps other people find it and see it. And maybe you just wanted to see what we look like after listening to an episode of the podcast, or see what we were pointing at, or what shapes we're making.
Sorry to disappoint on that front.
If we were talking with our hands, you may need to watch bits as well. But thanks so much for sticking by or stopping by and sticking with the episode and getting stuck in. And we will. I'm getting ready to go to the Drummers Odyssey camp this coming weekend.
So I will report that.
We'll report back on that next time, maybe. I'm very much looking forward to that. Yeah,
for sure.
Some drumming and a lot of coffee, albeit decaf for me. But, I'm looking forward to that.
Drumming and coffee. Yeah.
Oh, that's actually a shame, Matt. I just realised I'm gigging on Saturday, and I was supposed to be around the corner. Well, not around the corner, but about 10 minutes from where the Odyssey camp is. But it's now a little bit further. It's a shame.
I shall come and stand at your gig in the evening with my Sabian t-shirt on.
Phil, please do.
Bring the whole camp to Harry's gig.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Oh,
yeah. And shout
see
out,
if you
he's
get
not
nervous
even
then,
nervous.
Yeah, yeah.
Thanks
Call you
everyone
up
for
on the
listening.
kit. That'll solve it.
Yeah, no problem. I'll bring me in ears. As long as it's not wet leg. Shows long.
Do you know a little jam called Superstition?
Never heard it. Thanks everyone for listening. Take care, guys.
Yeah, thanks, everyone.
And,
Nice one, guys.
we will catch you again soon. See you guys.
See
Bye.
you soon. Bye.